I never knew anything about the history. This is how I knew I was completely like brainwashed. My heart was like beating, like my breath was short. I really felt like I was going to die. Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm Annery Morgan and I'm going to use this video to talk about how I woke up from the whole Jehovah's Witness, truth, religion, denomination, whatever they want to call it. I've had this video down to do for a good couple of weeks and I was really scared to do it because I'm still connected to my family, which is still a part of the organization. And even though I might tease them in person, I really don't want to come off as disrespectful to their faith in public. I still decided to go ahead and do it because this channel is really a representation of who I am, and a big part of my personality and a lot of person's personality is their faith. And this organization played a lot in shaping and molding who I am or how I thought in the past. I'm still in the process of kind of getting over some of the things I learned within it and trying to kind of unlearn it in a way. I was almost born into this organization in the way where it was my family really got into it. When I say my family, I'm excluding persons like my father. I think I want to mention him in particular because he's more of an atheist. So he was never a Jehovah's Witness. So the part of my family that did follow the organization, they really got into it when I was like younger than 5. So it's a little bit different when you were technically born in it because it's kind of all that I knew. So I really did believe that it was the truth because it's all I knew. So when I say that I truly believed, know that I felt it in my chest. You know that feeling that you know that your God is real and your truth is truth, and that surety and that strong, you feel it right here. I felt that, and I really was sure that this was definitely the way to go, and everybody else that wasn't a part of this was technically doomed. If I'm going to be blunt, the whole idea of preaching to others outside of the faith is basically to like get them on board soon enough before the end comes. That's really what it is, because we learned that the end is any second, any time, and you really didn't want to catch yourself in any form of sinful behaviors during that time period, because then you won't be a part of the everlasting life. And a part of the preaching was really to get other people to know that that's what's going to happen. So they need to kind of come on board and join the faith and serve Jehovah, because if they don't, they won't have the opportunity to have everlasting life. So because of that knowledge, I don't think my family fully knew this, or I don't think they fully processed that this was what I was going through, is that there was so much anxiety that I had because of two things. One, it was because of the people that I do love that weren't a part of it. So for example, the only person I'm going to mention now is my father. I used to think that, oh my goodness, that he's not going to be a part of this. And it was like conditioning my mind to understand and believe that he won't be there. There was some form of pain attached to it, like this emotional pain where, oh, he's not gonna, I don't want to sound like corny, but that's really how I felt, because know that this is when I was like 12 and under. I used to worry for my dad, not just my dad. I'm just mentioning him. And then another reason was because I knew in my mind that I had, in the organization standards, I had impure thoughts. For example, I had crushes on boys from I was really young, like boys in my class and stuff like that. And I used to feel like, oh, one, they didn't believe in the faith, and two, I was too young to be having these feelings. So the guilt that was on me was crazy, because I thought, oh my gosh, the end is coming any second and any minute. I wasn't going to live forever. So in retrospect, as a child, that should have never been the worry on my mind. But you know, that's what it was. So what I used to do is I used to pray. I used to pray to Jehovah so hard, begging him like to forgive me of my thoughts, and that so this is the time when I was before 12. So before high school, I started high school at 12. So I used to feel like when I get away from this particular boy, I won't have these feelings friends anymore because I'll be gone. So when I finally went to high school now, I went to an all-girls high school. Two things, I was like sad, of course, because I'm going to be away from the crush I had. And then I was happy because, I wasn't going to be around boys, because I don't know why, I've just always liked boys. Another part of it is that I never celebrated birthdays, we never celebrated Christmas and stuff. I feel like that affects people more who are living in the US and probably other countries. It is a big deal in Jamaica to celebrate birthdays, but for some reason, it never really bothered me. So yeah, I also felt guilty for not listening in the meetings because the meetings were boring. The organization really took up time. Let's start the week. So Sundays would have meetings. Sundays would be, you'd prepare for the meeting from Saturday night for Sunday. After meeting on Sunday, hour and 45 minutes. So you prep and everything for the meeting. So even though the meeting hour and 45 minutes, it's taking way more hours out of your life. After meeting now, you socialize and then you go and fill service for another 2 hours. And then after that, now you're so drained and tired. Your Sunday's gone. Your Saturday. Wait, I didn't even tell you guys what happened on Saturday. When I was little, they eventually cut this out. Monday, you prepare for the meeting on Tuesday. Tuesday, you prepare for a Wednesday or Thursday meeting, which was another hour and 45 minutes. I feel like it used to be longer, like 2 hours then. And then Saturday, we'd go to field service for another 2 hours and then decide to start again. So Saturday evening, you prepare for the Sunday morning meeting and go on the service. So it's really like a full-on time-consuming organization, Can you imagine being an adult, having bills to pay and everything? You have to work your life and talk to your boss to work things all the way around that. That's a lot. But they eventually cut out the Tuesday meeting and just put it in with the next meeting, which was Wednesday or Thursday. For me, it was Wednesday. So I felt guilty for not listening in those meetings. I forgot another thing too, aside from all of that I just say, you had personal study. So as a child now, my parent that was in it, they would do a personal study with me to strengthen my faith, because I'm a kid. So that's technically an entire week consumed by this religion, So I felt guilty for not listening to meetings, and I felt guilty for having the crushes that I had. I felt guilty for hating going on field service, walking in the sun. I was in Jamaica. The sun hot. All of this guilt was because I was thinking that, because I dislike doing all of this, it means that I'm not going to be chosen, or I'm not going to be one of those people to go to paradise. So it's said and it's known that God can see inside of you and your thoughts and your mind. So it's like you can't escape. It's like there's an imposter inside of you. Imagine you live in a room and there's a camera watching every step you make. It's different because you still can think when you want to think and do what you want to do. But when that thing is inside of you, knowing everything you think and say and do, it was said that it's the devil controlling you. So I felt bad, like, oh my God, I have the devil controlling me. Like, it was unnecessary stress for a child. And then another thing also was the friends that you keep. Like, it's encouraged that you keep friends that are within the organization. And also, when you eventually reach dating stage, date persons within the organization. So you really have a small pool of people to choose as friends and date. So really and truly, you would see like a 9-year-old having friends that's in their 20s, because it's that limited of friends to find. It's ridiculous, because persons outside of the faith are said to be worldly, and it's almost like they make them seem like their motive is to turn you away from their faith with their actions or whatever they are doing or however they have fun. Which is, after coming out of it and living in the US, I realized that people just respect people's faith. Meaning, I could have friends with somebody of a whole other religion, Muslim or who's Jewish or whatever, and you will just know the standout rules within their religion, and you just don't cross that bounds. But you can still be friends on a personal level where your personalities attract each other and you're good and you're having fun and you're great. So that's how I know that part was a lie. When I eventually got mature, I realized that it was actually the Jehovah's Witness organization that was being disrespectful to other people's faith. because we constantly were imposing our beliefs on other people so much without caring that we are telling them that theirs is wrong and ours is right. And the fact that these people were clearly more wise in the way where they can just say, okay, and respectfully just agree and listen, even though you're telling them that their religion is not right and that they need to come on now because or else they'll die forever. That's really the message that they're imposing on other people, but that they're not willing to listen to another person, respectfully just share their faith. If in the middle of a witness kind of telling you what they believe, if you now flip the switch and say, well, what I believe is that they don't want to hear it. They'll be like, nah, almost like they feel like your words are gonna like cut their lives in half or like do something. So one thing I did a lot was I was very open as a witness. I understand that some students like in the US or so that are part of the faith, some persons, they might even get bullied for it in certain areas. In Jamaica, they don't really bully you like that for stuff like that, like, or at least the schools that I went to, nobody really cared. In fact, I've had cases where people actually back me up who weren't a part of the faith. I once had a teacher who was like determined that everybody had to close their eyes and pray, which, if you know, Jehovah's Witnesses won't be praying another person's prayer. It was a Spanish teacher who just wanted us to say a Christian prayer in Spanish. And she was determined that no one's going to go for lunch unless everybody closed their eyes and said a prayer. And then another classmate and I, we were like, no, we're not going to do it. And the class was backing us up, was like, no, you guys don't close your eyes. It's okay. My classes throughout my life, they were just really respectful. They really didn't care. I, for some reason, used to get in religious debates with students in school, like Seventh-day Adventists and stuff. That was really more fun and everything. And to think that I used to believe so strong. This is why I question a lot of people's faith, just what their faith is really on, because I used to talk so confidently about this religion. I used to defend and debate with people so strong. I truly believed everything that I was saying, just as how the other person truly believed what they were saying. And for me to look back now, I really can't even quote a rightful. I had like a couple Bible verses in my head that I would go by. I really don't know the Bible. I was really talking nonsense. I found that there is a way that you can know nothing but sound like you know something. And I feel like that's what these people really be doing. I was determined and I truly believed it. So I felt it here and I was preaching and I was believing that I was saying what should be said. And I was telling the truth. You get me? But really and truly, I didn't know shit. Yeah, I really was just arguing off of what I learned in the meetings and not necessarily quoting factual Bible truths. So even the verses that I was pulling from and like mentioning was not my interpretation of those verses. It was like the verses said, and this is the interpretation I learned to say and somehow believed as well. And so I just repeated it. Whether it made sense or not, it's a weird, cloudy stance. It's weird. I'm going to tell you why it even got so much weird that I was preaching stuff I didn't fully understand. I'm going to get to it a little further in the story. I really don't know why I was getting in these religious debates with my classmates and other people, because we were really trained to stay away from these debates, because it was said, this is how I was taught, that it was more like a mockery of the religion more than it was somebody actually willingly coming and wanting to understand. When really and truly, a lot of these people, they really just want to understand. But it's almost like it was said that if someone questions you too much, or if somebody like is adamant about getting a certain point, they're mocking you instead of actually want to understand, which is not true. Like, some people really just want to understand why we do this or why we never did that or whatever. But I feel like the reason why they were told in that way to avoid confrontation, just because people are asking questions, like actual constructive questions that made sense, it would open the eyes of some people. So they said, you know what, avoid these people. There's no other religion out there that's not a cult, that's afraid to stand up for their faith and actually represent it in the form of a conversation with somebody else. If you're talking to a Jehovah's Witness about faith, it's definitely going to be a one-directional conversation, because they're not open to being questioned in a way that's not mocking them, nor are they open to just listening to you like, oh, that's what you believe? Well, I believe that da 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 da. Like they won't give you that respectful time of day. It's disrespectful to me because you're imposing your thoughts and your beliefs and basically disregarding someone else's strong belief in whatever they believe. And then there was another point on education. Higher education is technically discouraged. Now, if you speak to them directly about, like, with those words that higher education is discouraged, they'll tell you, no, it's not discouraged. There's no truth in that and everything. But it really is. And the organization, they don't tell you specifically don't head for higher education, but they use very subtle ways in telling you that you're wasting your time getting higher education because it won't mean nothing. And the time you're taking to learn about the world, you should be really taking it to learn about Jehovah and teaching other people and spreading the good news to other people about him. So that's the kind of way they deliver that message. So when you tell them that, oh, but the organization discourages higher education, they'll be like, nah, it doesn't. But I know a good couple smart people that gave up going to, and when I say smart, I mean they were getting way better grades than me in high school, and they were actually on top and really smart and on the road to being one of those high performing career. They never went for it just because they needed another career, a simpler, less time consuming type of career, or just avoid career seeking and just getting a regular, simple job just so they can have time for Jehovah and to preach. I know a good double handful of people who made that decision. Luckily for me, I'm from a kind of stubborn family, and I'm so grateful for that because somehow that message kind of flew over my family head, and higher education was the motive for us. So I don't understand how that ended up happening, but it happened, and thank God it did, because I would regret every second of that right now that I'm out of it, you know? By the time I was in pharmacy school, I was technically out, and I'll lead you onto how I open my eyes. Using pharmacy school is another real reason why they don't want you to get higher education, because of course your head gets, all your loose screws get tightened, and then you find out that, okay, this is manipulation. But yeah, I remember after getting in pharmacy school, when I went to the Kingdom Hall in the US and I went to the Kingdom Hall back home, 2 different congregations back home, and all 3 times that I went, they asked me, oh, so what are you studying? And I said pharmacy. It's almost like it was a rehearsed line. They all said, what are you going to do with pharmacy in paradise? You won't need this in paradise, which is proof from other people's mouth that clearly education is not encouraged. But if you say that to people in my family that, oh, education isn't encouraged, they'll be like, no, nothing goes like that. But it's true. Especially when you watch that Caleb and Sophia cartoon, when I think it was Sophia who wanted to do well in school, and she basically sabotaged her exam and got a lower grade. That's how they kind of brainwashing the kids from young. So how I ended up opening my eyes. In high school, I still had that guilt, that same guilt that I was running away from. Even though I went to all girls school, I still had my little crushes. That was probably my biggest struggle in the religion, was really me and my crushes. Cause I've just always been that type to love the opposite sex, which is totally biologically normal. So fast forward, I moved to the US. I went ahead with a relationship outside of the organization. In 2016, I moved to the US and everything. So I was really far away from my family that would have a bigger influence on the religion with me. When I was living under the same household, of course, it was a must that I must go to the Kingdom Hall and everything. But by the time I started going to university, not college, it was really up to me, whatever I did. But when I moved to the US in 2016, I started going to the Long Island University, and I ended up doing some unnecessary courses. Trust me, this part of the story actually has sense in it. But basically, I ended up doing some courses I didn't need to do. Before I got into the professional or the graduate level phase, I was doing pre-pharmacy. Turns out that part was unnecessary. But what happened was I got to learn a bit of American history, which I grew up in the Caribbean. So we did learn a bit of American history, but I really branched off into the sciences. So I really didn't know history and religion, religious education and stuff like that on a deeper level, right? And that's really where I found out about how all of these organization came about. I learned about the mindset of the people who moved to the Americas, where they were really rebellious. There was no fully any true structured leader then. So everybody kind of wanted power, and they were also kind of deviating from the Roman Catholic type of beliefs. So a lot of these Protestant churches started out. And one of those Protestant churches that I learned about that started was the Jehovah's Witness. I've been following and going through this religion and believing it to my core about the religion, but I never understood how it started and the source of it. I never knew anything about the history, and Jehovah's Witnesses don't know how the organization started or anything about the history of it. I can tell you that. And they really go along with what they're told, and they are never told about the history. Another class that I did was anatomy. And of course, I'm in pharmacy, so anatomy would be a definite class that I would have to take. And that class really introduced me to evolution. We know that that's a no-no for Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't believe in anything evolutionary or any. And I'm not saying I'm an advocate or I truly believe in evolution, but I definitely know that mutations exist. Evolution is really like mutations times 1,000. It is really small mutations that eventually lead up to what we call evolution. If you're in the science background, you'll understand what I'm saying. And to give a very easy example, I can talk about stuff like the flu, or even that virus that went around the other day that everybody know what I'm talking about, or even HIV. The reason why you might get the flu every single year is because the flu constantly changes itself in a way where it can infect you over and over. So even though your body's making defenses against the specific flu that you got this year, and your body will make memory cells to it. So if your body sees it again, the body already knows and has antibodies and everything against it. But by next year, you have the flu again because the flu changed. It mutated and your body is seeing a brand new version of the flu. So it has to like treat it as something new. And that's the same thing with HIV. Even when you look at what is used to treat HIV today, you recognize that it's like a cocktail of drugs. Or now they put it in one pill, but it's a whole bunch of drugs they have in one single pill. And it's basically targeting every stage of development for the HIV virus so that it doesn't get to mutate further and like outsmart your body's immune system in a way. I hope you get what I'm saying. I'm trying not to be like a little too technical. And it's the same thing where we had so many variants of that virus that was there the other day. You know, the one apparently no one says it on YouTube because somehow it might affect your monetization. But you know which one I'm talking. That's why we have different variants. So it's really just those mutations over and over and over that eventually lead to changes to the extent of what we call evolution. And another thing is that, like another example is that cancer is like a mutation gone wrong. So the way we have our hair and our skin tones, the variance in all of that, just the broadness of our nose versus some people have slim nose is all mutation basically to adapt to our environment. You know how we have a wisdom tooth? There are persons being born today that actually don't have wisdom teeth. That's evolution right there. When I learned that, it was kind of like a shocker for me because I grew up believing in faith that there was no such thing as evolution, that it's complete bogus. To actually see living proof and have it make sense in front of me, that was like a big question mark on my faith, along with the history that I learned. And then when I got into the professional phase of pharmacy school, where I got into the grad school version of it now, the entire field of pharmacy is based on evidence. Everything you say in our profession, you have to back it up with literature. There has to be proof. And of course, in the world of religion, humans, they don't know everything. But for me to have strong faith in an organization that's stating such strong rules and restrictions and stuff, there must be some form of evidence behind where they're getting it from. Not knowing the simplest detail as to where it really came from, I just thought that made no sense. It was, which kind of like also helped to back up why they don't want or why they technically discourage higher education, because this is what regular common sense would bring to anybody. You get me? The fact that I didn't know the history of the organization and the only thing I knew about the organization was coming directly from their site, jw.org, for me to have my faith only backed up by one single source. They're saying the source is also the Bible, but we know that's not true. In the scientific world, we know that that's ridiculous. So I did my research. And when I went into my research, I want to let you know that this is how I knew I was completely like brainwashed, because I had a serious panic attack. My heart was like beating, like my breath was short. I really felt like I was going to die. Like I felt like I couldn't breathe. And like I was really like hyperventilating and everything just to type in the history of Jehovah's Witness organization. Just simple that. Just that, like, just to actually go and research the history of my own religion that I have such strong faith about. I was mentally enslaved by this organization. And basically, based on what I found out, which would be similar to what you find out if you decide to go and research this organization. That was it for me and the faith. When I finished reading, I was done. I was out, and I've never felt more free in my life. Even my faith now is still a big question mark. But I know that whoever created me and whoever created the universe, I'm going to respect what he created and everything around it. And I know that if there is a real, true, loving God out there, he'll understand my stance and my confusion right now. And I'm not going to just jump and go hunting for something and then land on another faith that is just there because of desperation. But right now, I feel so free. Even, it might sound like I'm like a fish out of water, but just to be out, like my mind is just completely clear. I'm walking guilt-free. I'm of the mindset that if anything happens to me tomorrow, that's it. Like, I'm not like anxious about not getting somewhere or guilty for my thoughts or anything. It's like, I feel so free. Overall, I started reading the Bible objectively instead of just feeling like I have to accept everything. And my whole mindset on just Christianity faith is completely like, it's just really not there for me. But overall, that's it for my story on how I kind of freed myself from that organization. I love listening to other person's videos and stories about it. That's why I wanted to share mine as well. And I also want to be a part of the stories I tell and representing who I am on my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. The camera's about to be shut off, and bye.